Okay, the other day we were discussing about drugs that we are using in congestive heart failure, and I told you what congestive heart failure is. We came up to a point where we were discussing about ACE inhibitors, okay, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. Okay, some common examples for ACE inhibitors will be captopril. All ACE inhibitors will end with prils. Okay, so that is one way you can memorize them if you want to. Lisinopril, enalapril, nalapril, benzapril, so on and so forth. You will have a few more. These four are enough. Okay. Now these drugs, as I was telling you, they will inhibit the enzyme ACE. Now you need ACE, the enzyme, to convert angiotensin 1 to angiotensin 2. Right. The other day when we were discussing about RAS, I told you that angiotensin 1 gets converted angiotensin 2 into angiotensin 2 using the enzyme ACE, angiotensin converting enzyme. Right. Now these inhibitors will directly inhibit this enzyme, because of which you will not get several effects of this angiotensin 2. Now normally speaking, what does angiotensin 2 do? Angiotensin 2 without any inhibition, let's suppose we do not give ACE inhibitors, angiotensin 2 normally whenever it is stimulated, it will increase blood pressure by causing vasoconstriction. So one thing it will do is it will cause vasoconstriction, because of which BP increases. Okay, it will also increase BP by sodium retention, sodium sodium release or sodium retention. Okay, the angiotensin 2 eventually will go on to cause aldosterone to be, or it will go on to form aldosterone, which in turn causes sodium and water retention. So that is one way through which it can increase blood pressure. Other than that, it will what you call, I'll just put it here, sodium and water release, aldosterone. Okay, then we have, one second, yeah, then another effect of this is that on kidneys, angiotensin 2 will decreases GFR. If GFR decreases, sodium and sodium reabsorption specifically at your PCT will increase. That in turn causes even more amount of what you call BP increase. And in your brain, decreases GFR, increases sodium retention at PCT. Okay. The third thing it will do is it will inhibit baroreceptor reflex. Baroreceptors are special receptors that are present in your blood vessels that manage the blood pressure. Okay, they will make sure that blood pressure is regulated at a normal level. Whenever it is high, they will try to make it low by sending a specific signal to your brain, and in turn, your brain will act accordingly. And whenever it is high, it will make it low. High to low, low to high, just so that it will maintain at a normal vertical pace of 120 by 80 mmHg. Now, if you are inhibiting baroreceptor reflex, the cap at what do you call BP will be removed, or basically it will cause indirect increase in blood pressure. All of these will spike up your blood pressure. If you are able to, it will also increase vasopressin secretion. It will also cause corticotropin hormone release from pituitary, which in turn, see, if you have corticotropin hormone being released, corticotropin hormone CRH will go to your pituitary and it will start secreting ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone. ACTH from pituitary will stimulate the production, or it will stimulate adrenal glands, which in turn will start producing adrenaline, which will spike up BP. See, all of them are methods through which blood pressure will ultimately increase. Now, if I'm able to give something like an ACE inhibitor, captopril, lisinopril, or these, what will happen is this enzyme is inhibited, because of which I will not get any of these functions. Ultimately, there will be a decrease in BP. That is how ACE inhibitors work. Okay, they will prevent the formation of angiotensin 2 by inhibiting ACE, they will also cause vasodilation and decrease peripheral vascular resistance. Because of this, overall BP will fall. Okay, I hope you guys are following along. Please feel free to stop me at any time if you're not understanding. One another thing that ACE does is that ACE will normally, whenever ACE is being present, angiotensin converting enzyme degrades bradykinin. Okay. What is the significance of bradykinin? Whenever you have AC inhibitors, for example, let's suppose I give a AC inhibitor which will spike up bradykinin level. Bradykinin is a very, very potent vasodilator. If you have bradykinin levels in your blood, or if you have increased amount of bradykinin in your blood, the amount of vasodilation you will have is quite significant, because of which BP will fall. Other than that, blood flow to your kidneys, brain, and heart increases due to selective vasodilation. Okay. Uh, Coming to PK of these AC inhibitors, you don't have drug specific PK because you are not going too deep into us AC inhibitors. That is why I'm not discussing them drug wise. Rather, I'm discussing a whole class wise. Okay. Coming to the general PK of AC inhibitors, most of these inhibitors are these inhibitors are excreted through kidney. Um, they are absorbed orally. Some of them will be absorbed orally, some of them through parenteral routes, depending on different drugs. One route might be more suitable than the other, but avoid in renal dysfunction. Okay, most of these inhibitors are excreted through what do you call kidneys. Okay. Absorption will be variable between parenteral and oral, depending on what type you are giving. Absorption might change slightly, but generally oral drugs are preferred. The absorption is decent. Avoid it in renal dysfunction. Okay, avoid giving ACE. Yeah, Atul, do you have a doubt? Okay, avoid it completely. ACE inhibitors and ARBs, both of them should be avoided in renal dysfunction. Other than that, you should also avoid it in patients who have respiratory problems. Why? This AC enzyme is present in your lungs, or to put it in another way, angiotensin converting enzyme is secreted by cells that are present in your lung. Meaning, if you are inhibiting ACE enzyme, it will start affecting your lungs as well. Specifically, what will happen is, if one adverse effect of giving AC inhibitors is persistent dry cough. This will specifically happen when bradykinin levels increases. Okay, ACE normally degrades bradykinin. If I'm giving an ACE inhibitor, bradykinin level will go up. See, ACE normally is decreasing bradykinin levels, right? It is bringing down bradykinin levels. If I give an inhibitor of ACE, bradykinin levels will go up. Whenever bradykinin levels go up, vasodilation will occur, no doubt. But along with that, it will also cause dry cough. Okay? Sometimes it will become very, very severe, and what do you call, to an extent that you will definitely have to stop it. As such, it is what they call advised that you avoid giving AC inhibitors in someone who has respiratory problems, something like asthma or COPD or things like that. Avoid giving AC inhibitors in them altogether. Some other specific adverse effects will be, so adverse effect is, one is dry cough, okay, because it is irritating the mucosa there. Other than that, it can cause hyperkalemia, okay, increase potassium levels. It is a teratogenic drug, especially in second and third trimester. Whenever if you give it to a pregnant lady who is in the second or third trimester, what will happen is the baby will have malformed lungs. Their lungs will be severely affected and they will not be formed properly. So teratogenic, especially in second and third trimester. Avoid completely in pregnancy if possible. Okay. Another thing is that it will cause dysgeusia. Ever heard this term, dysgeusia? Ever came across this term? Dysgeusia is basically a condition in which the patient's sensation of taste will be altered. That is very common with captopril, especially. Whenever a patient is on captopril, they will complain of not tasting anything that they are eating. This is one side effect that will occur with captopril. If you simply stop what you call, it will be reversible if you stop taking the drug. Okay, within a few days to a few weeks after stopping captopril, the sensation of taste will be back. Normal sensation will be back. So this juice here is altered sensation of taste. Okay, these are some specific adverse effects that you can easily remember. AC inhibitors are working at or working on an enzyme that is present in your lung. That is why they are causing dry cough. They will cause hyperkalemia. They are teratogenic in second or third trimester. Avoid giving them in pregnancy altogether. They will alter sensation of taste, especially captopril. Captopril. Okay, and AC inhibitors rarely cause angioedema. Angioedema में क्या होता? Rarely cause angioedema, swelling of your blood vessels. To an extent that what will happen is the patient's lips, nose, larynx, airway, all of that will get swollen and get obstructed. So lips, nose, larynx, and airway get swollen or swell, leading to obstruction. This is a big problem because if there is a airway obstruction, the patient will not be able to breathe, and obviously there will be a very big complication, because of which you have to immediately stop giving AC inhibitors in such patients. Some patients are very sensitive to AC inhibitors where they have severe angioedema. Now in some patients you'll only see slightly lips becoming slightly puffy or nose becoming slightly puffy. That is fine. But if it is going all the way up to airway obstruction, if they are not able to breathe properly, immediately stop giving AC inhibitors and administer adrenaline. Okay, administer adrenaline in case of emergency. Okay, keep them ready whenever you are giving or you are about to give AC inhibitor, especially the first dose, because you don't know how individual patients will react to different drugs. Let's suppose that patient is sensitive to AC inhibitors, and the first time that you give it, there is immediate airway collapse. They are not able to breathe altogether because of obstruction. At that point of time, that is because of an anaphylactic reaction. Immediately give a dose of adrenaline so that it can be abated. Okay. Precautions and contraindications will obviously include pregnancy. Do not give this with other potassium sparing diuretics. What are potassium sparing diuretics? Don't give in pregnancy. Don't give with potassium sparing diuretics. थोड़े दिन ही हुए ना diuretics discuss करके. Who are potassium sparing diuretics? Any one example? No? Find out and tell me. What are potassium sparing diuretics? They are also contraindicated if a patient has renal artery stenosis. If there is abnormal, if there is a problem of abnormal narrowing of that blood vessel, and if they have general renal problems, renal failure and all, avoid giving them in, uh, uh, avoid giving AC inhibitors in such patients. Contraindicated in renal failure patients. Okay. There is one particular drug called digoxin. Okay, it is a cardiac glycoside generally given in heart failure. That drug, what it does is it will increase the force of contraction directly. It is a very potent drug. I think when we are discussing about narrow therapeutic index drugs, I mentioned it to you once. Digoxin, digitoxin, बल्कि भी मिलता. That drug is severely contraindicated with AC inhibitors, because AC inhibitors enhance the plasma digoxin levels. They will compete with digoxin for its own place. Competitive inhibition की वजह से digoxin levels in your blood will increase significantly, which can lead to toxicity. Already, digoxin is a narrow therapeutic index drug, meaning even a small change in its dose can be very toxic to the patient. In such cases, avoid giving ACE inhibitors with digoxin altogether. Okay, avoid co-administration with digoxin. Okay, so this is about ACE inhibitors. I hope you understood. If you want me to explain any particular plot, please let me know. I'll try to re-explain it. Any part that you did not understand. Okay, you can put it in the message chat as well if you didn't understand any part, or if you want me to repeat the whole thing, or whatever your doubt is. Cool. Now coming to the next class that is given in this is also a vasodilator but a different class of drug. Okay, they are called calcium channel blockers. You will have two main categories in calcium channel blockers. Okay, you will have non-hydro. Two classes are dihydropyridones, dihydro, sorry, dihydropyridines, and non-dihydropyridines. They are also, just remember them as others, easier. ठीक है, dihydropyridines में आता drug, there is a particular ring, dihydropyridine ring in their structure, that is why they are called dihydropyridines. The others will also be called non-dihydropyridines, but you can remember them as others as well. Nifedipine, I'm sure you must have come across one of these drugs till now. Amlodipine, nisolidipine, you have nicardipine, um, then we have felodipine. Okay, as you can see, most of them will end up with ines, dipines. Okay, so you can, one way to remember it. Others will include diltiazem, verapamil, verapamil, and we have bepredil. Okay, so these are some examples for calcium channel blockers. Two different categories. Now, how do they work? See, mechanism of action of calcium channel is pretty simple. For now, forget that we are giving calcium channel blockers. Just remember or try to recollect how muscle contraction occurred. I'm sure that you must have been taught how muscle contraction occurs. Uh, there is what you call troponin myosin transport using or facilitated by calcium. Right, calcium will enter the muscle. It will enter. Once it enters muscle, it will go all the way up to your sarcoplasmic reticulum, where it causes even more calcium to come out, or calcium influx will cause calcium to be secreted out of your endoplasmic reticulum, or endoplasmic reticulum of your muscle will be called sarcoplasmic reticulum, which causes even more calcium to be released. And whenever you have this much amount of calcium accumulating inside a particular cell or inside a particular muscle, it will contract. Right, I hope ये याद है आप लोगों को. This is how calcium generally works in response to with respect to your muscle contraction. यहाँ पर what will happen is, when we talk about the mechanism of action of our congestive heart failure, mechanism of action of a calcium channel blocker, sorry, CCBs भी बोलते हैं लोगों को, calcium channel blockers will blocks L-type calcium channel. There are three types of calcium channel. Okay, L and T type of calcium channels रहते हैं. This one will specifically block L type of calcium channels. The effect will be that calcium entry into your cell will decrease. Specifically यहाँ पर cardiac cell or cardiac muscle and vascular smooth muscle. ठीक है? In both of them, entry will be stopped. Now let's suppose we have a blood vessel like this, and यहाँ पर blood vessel के अंदर we have receptors for, or let me draw it inwards. Let's suppose this is the receptor that is present inside a blood vessel, and if we are taking cardiac tissue, let's suppose we have one particular cell like this in your cardiac lining, okay, and receptor, not cell, calcium receptor. Now whenever we have calcium that is present in this space, it will enter that cell, or calcium present here, this will enter that particular blood vessel, and let's suppose we are talking about blood vessel, it will cause vasoconstriction. Whenever it is causing vasoconstriction, blood pressure will increase. Or whenever with respect to vertical cardiac muscle we are talking, cardiac muscle के अंदर अगर calcium enter हुआ, it will cause cardiac muscle contraction. ठीक है? In that sense, what will happen is, if I am able to block this entry itself, ठीक है, there is no contraction. अगर contraction अगर मैं block कर दिया, the eventual result will be that it will cause decrease in heart rate, it will cause decrease in cardiac contractility. See, congestive heart failure के साथ एक बड़ा problem क्या आता है, even though your heart is having blood pooling in. Now we already know that congestive heart failure is a condition in which blood will start pooling into your ventricles. This will cause a reaction from your body. Obviously, when extra amount of blood is pulling into your heart, there is decreased amount of blood present in your body, right? Instead of 5 liters, let's suppose only 4.5 liters is being pumped into your body, and the rest half liter is being distributed in the two ventricles. 250 ml बढ़ के बच जा रहा. Okay, this can cause a big problem. Why? Because the demand of your body will not be met. Whenever body's demand is not met, your body will send a signal to your brain telling that your heart is not working properly. Please increase force of contraction and please increase rate of contraction. Even though this will not resolve what do you call congestive heart failure properly, because it can be because of several reasons. यहाँ पर क्या होता है, if you start increasing aimlessly, start increasing heart rate and force of contraction, it can cause permanent cardiac damage. Permanent cardiac damage in a way also translates to myocardial infarction. It will cause a heart attack in a patient. Okay, in such ways calcium channel blockers will be very very helpful. See, even though you are increasing force of contraction and heart rate temporarily, you are not resolving the issue. यहाँ पर congestion is not going. Congestion is most probably because of a big factor where, see, generally what happens is congestive heart failure is occurring because there is a problem in the ventricle itself. Increasing the force of contraction or problem in the ventricle, in the sense that either that ventricular muscle is not working properly, or there is not enough circulation to that muscle, or conduction, electrical impulses are not being reached to that area properly, or there is what do you call, let's suppose it is what do you call, stenosis, or yeah, imagine there is stenosis of your aorta, or a stenosis of your pulmonary artery. If there is blockage in your pulmonary artery or your aorta, in in that condition also, blood will not be pumped out clearly. Okay, it needs to be completely open. The semilunar valves need to be completely open for blood, normal amount of blood to be ejected out. Agar wo blocked hai, then also congestive heart failure will occur. In all of these senses, there is not a problem in heart rate or cardiac contractility. But what happens is, when your body is getting less amount of this thing, oxygen, and less amount of blood, it will in turn trigger a reaction where heart rate and cardiac contractility will go up, which can be detrimental. In that sense, if you are able to give calcium channel blocker, it will help in decreasing cardiac contractility, it will help in decreasing heart rate, and it will help in decreasing AV conduction. Okay. Atrioventricular conduction. Because of increased conduction as well, you will have some cardiovascular damage. Okay. Also, plus it will cause It will cause vascular smooth muscle relaxation. If vascular smooth muscle relaxation occurs, it in turn means that the the what you call blood vessel is undergoing vasodilation. ठीक है, whenever you have a blood vessel which is not undergoing और उसके smooth muscles को मैं relax करा, it will basically cause relaxation of that blood vessel itself, because of which your blood vessel will dilate. When blood vessel is dilating, BP will fall. ठीक है, that is the direct action of CCBs. I hope you understood. I'll just repeat once again. Normally what happens is, for now forget about calcium channel blockers. Whenever we have a muscle, smooth muscle rando या cardiac muscle rando, if calcium is entering that cell, it will trigger a reaction where sarcoplasmic reticulum or the endoplasmic reticulum of that cell will start producing more amount of calcium. Rather than producing, I would say that it already has a store of calcium and it is releasing that calcium. Whenever increased amount of calcium is present in the cytoplasm, it will cause contraction of that cell. Here it is a problem in case of what do you call congestive heart failure, or in case of, let's suppose, any other cardiac disease of this kind where contractility is already a problem. You do not want your muscles to contract even more. Okay? In that sense, if you are able to give a calcium channel blocker, it will block the entry of that initial calcium ion into your cell itself, because of which your cardiac muscle can relax. Okay? It will not be put under as much pressure or as much tension as what congestive heart failure will do, because of which both your BP will go down, heart rate goes down, cardiac contractility goes down, and there is better chance of the patient to survive. For you to treat the underlying cause, yahan par we are not trying to treat the underlying cause. Here we are only trying to stabilize the patient before we are treating the underlying cause. Congestive heart failure को generally you need to give drugs से करना मुश्किल ही है. You have to perform surgery, or you have to make sure that if there is atherosclerosis, underlying cause को treat करना ज़्यादा important है. यहाँ पर because your body is getting anxious, it is increasing the load on your heart muscles and increasing blood pressure, indirectly causing that, which can cause stroke, or it can cause myocardial infarction. You do not want that to happen in a patient. So to prevent that from happening, you are giving calcium channel blockers, decreasing the potential of stroke or myocardial infarction to occur. Okay, I hope you know the difference between stroke and heart attack, and I hope you understood what CCBs are and how they work. समझ में आया, or do you want me to repeat it and explain again any part of this thing? Okay, I'm putting in chat as well as usual. If you did not understand any particular part, or if you want me to repeat any particular part. Okay, now coming to some specific drugs. Again, you will not go into a lot of detail. I'll discuss CCBs as an overall class as such. We have nimodipine. Yeah, nimodipine is also a dihydropyridine. This fellow is highly lipid soluble and it is able to cross BBB, relaxing cerebral blood vessels. So it is very, very good in prevention of stroke. Crosses BBB and is highly lipophilic. Okay. Because of which it is able to relaxes central blood vessels. Why do you want your central blood vessels to relax? Because if there is a hypertension in your blood vessels, especially in your brain, it will cause stroke. Okay, it will cause a cerebrovascular injury and it will lead to stroke. Stroke will leave you with permanent what do you call central nervous damage, wherein the patient might even go into paralysis and all of that. If you're able to avoid it by giving a simple CCB, then well and good. Then we have, so there are some drugs we should be careful of as well. We have verapamil. Verapamil can cause prominent myocardial depression. Okay, because it decreases AV conduction, or because it depresses AV conduction, it causes bradycardia. Can cause by conduction. It will depress atrioventricular conduction, because of which you will have bradycardia. Now, as such, verapamil is fine. But if you are combining it with some other drugs, for example, you combine it with another calcium channel blocker like diltiazem, and you combine it with, let's suppose, beta blocker, it can cause profound myocardial depression. Profound myocardial depression meaning your heart will not work properly at all. It will, see, normally यहाँ पर decrease in heart rate is fine because we are giving it to patients whose heart rate is very very high. Okay, we are looking at patients whose heart rate is definitely tachycardic around 120 130. We are trying to bring them back to normal under 100 90s 80s ऐसा लाना चाह रहे हैं. Okay, preferably 72. If everything goes well, 72 will be the ideal heart rate which you want your patient to be at. But if you are giving it with other drugs which are cardiodepressive or which are causing myocardial depression, it can lead to severe bradycardia to an extent that the patient will become, uh, the little become cold and they will not have proper circulation at all. Okay, profound bradycardia can be very bad to a patient. Also, verapamil can displace digoxin and it can cause digoxin toxicity itself. Avoid giving verapamil with digoxin and, just write it here, avoid giving verapamil with digoxin, diltiazem. Generally, one calcium channel blocker is not combined with another calcium channel blocker. You can combine it with other antihypertensive drugs as such, but avoid combining it with either beta blockers or other CCBs because it will exaggerate the effect. Okay? Beta blockers. We'll discuss what are beta blockers in a short while, then you'll understand what beta blockers are. Diltiazem, beta blockers, or other CCBs. Okay, or any other myocardial depressant for that matter. Where you can use CCBs is that you can give it for angina pectoris, you can use it in hypertension, you can use it in arrhythmias. We are specifically using here in the case of congestive heart failure. Okay. Sometimes you can give a sustained release tablet of calcium channel blocker, something like amlodipine, which will work for a very long period of time. Amlodipine and felodipine, both of them can be given as sustained release tablets. I'm not sure whether ever you have come across SR tablets, but sustained release tablets or extended release tablets जिसको बोलते हैं, they are tablets that will work for a much longer period of time because they will get degenerated slowly and they will help in maintaining what do you call serum levels for a longer period of time, therapeutic serum levels of the drug for a longer period of time. Okay, so that was about calcium channel blockers. Some specific adverse effects of calcium channel blockers will be, adverse effects include flushing, leg cramps, it can cause ankle edema, palpitation, it can cause fatigue, and one special particle adverse effect it will cause is gum hypertrophy. ठीक है, gum hyperplasia भी बोलते हैं इसको. This is common also for phenytoin. We came across phenytoin इससे पहले. That also cause gum hypertrophy. This fellow will also cause gum hypertrophy. But generally these two will cause gum hypertrophy on long-term use rather than short-term use. Okay, if you are able to switch between drugs, then it is fine. But if you are giving one same drug for a long period of time, let's suppose you are only giving calcium channel blockers for years together, then it will lead to gum hypertrophy. Yeah. So we'll continue with the other drugs tomorrow.